Modernization theory. Ideal typical index method. Telcott Parson pattern vertical approach. Rostow's history stages approach. Diffusion on acceleration approach. Diffusion on accuration approach, psychological approach, Marxist and non-Marxist approach to development and understand development. Depending theory, Paul Baran, Andre Gunnar Fark, Samir Amin, Wallstein's world system theory, neoliberal perspective on development, alternative development, human development perspectives, anti-development perspectives. Objectives: discuss the modernization theory development, analyze Marxist and neo-Marxist approach of development and development, describe the neoliberal perspectives of development, outline the alternative development and human development, understand the uh, anti-development perspectives. Introduction. In this unit, we will be discuss the various perspectives on development, while modernization theory, Marxist and neo-Marxist approach to development and underdevelopment, neoliberal perspectives, alternative development, human development, and anti-development. The growth of development theory is post-World War II phenomena, but the idea of development and progress have been present in the theory of social Darwinism, Morgan analysis of salvage, barbarism, and civilization, Marxist history, Marxism, Toni's Gemini Caffet, and Gesali Caffet, Comet law of three stages. Durkheim in Mechanical to Organic Solidarity, and Weber treated to rationalist the early ideas of development and evolutionary process and changes of man's society. Evolutionism, Marxism, neo-Marxism, Keynesianism, structural functionism, neoclassical economic and post-structuralism, and social science paradigms were paradigms which influenced development theories and different times. But the development has action was continuously planned and monitored process of growth and change. The came up much later from the 19th century. Development thinking was the reaction to the crisis of progress. Such 19th century development thinking reacted to the crisis of progress, such as social problems caused by industrialization. Development became a project to produce a far better world. It was seen improving the living condition of the produce living condition of the poorest people. Development was the agenda laid down U.S. President Harry Truman 1949 inaugural speech. We must embark on whole new program for making the benefit of our scientific advance and industrial progress available for improvement and growth of underdeveloped area. There have been three areas of development. For one for from rise of man to emerge of modern state in Europe and 16th century. This period saw the evolution of agriculture, city and civilization. Number 2, rise of Europe, the North America, 16th century to 20th century. The period saw the rise of market system, capitalist institution and colonization. Number 3, global development era from 1917 onwards, wherein World War II was the watershed event culminating into the formation of legal of nations. Development start meaning not only social improvement but also catching up with advanced countries to restore priority of power and esteem. The meaning of development has changed over time. Initially, in meet the catching up with advanced industrialization countries, later economic growth and accumulation of capital became the core meaning of development. In 90s, emphasis was putting on human well-being, then the concept of social development, political, social, cultural aspect. When the limit to growth was realized, sustainable development became buzzword, focusing on the needs of present without compromising the ability of future generation to meet their own needs. Brundtland Commission. But development is both physical reality and state of mind of or deliberate intention to resolve immediate problem of poverty. It is important to mention here that development is one of the dominant Western discourses. The post-colonial approach seeks to challenge and attempt to the decolonize development studies. Let us discuss the various perspectives of development. Perspectives of development. Development theory is limited nation. It is more appropriate to say perspectives and analysis. The meaning of development has changing with the changing perspectives of development. Modernization theory, dependency, neoclassical economic, alternative development, human development, and post development. There is a there is a distinction between development and planned changes or engineering, and development is emanate the changes. A process from within. Modernization theory, the dependency theory follow the logic of development from above the outside. The early pioneer of the development thinking were Adam Smith, David Ricardo, Thomas Mathul, and John Stuart Mill for Smith in the wealth of nation. The progress of opulence was driven by growth of labor and stock of capital in the England. Malthus emphasized growth regarding factors as well as the limits to the population growth. Marxists identify 5 stages in the development of human population growth. Marx identifies stages of development of human society in historically deterministic process. All these classification thinkers were concerned with the evolution of society from feudal and rural to urban and industrial, and believe there is a single trajectory of development that all countries follows. Modernization theory. In 1950s and 1960s, modernization theory attempted to identify commonalized in the process of development in highly developed countries. It is based on a dualistic worldview, opposite tradition to modern lifestyle, and indigenous to westernized culture. It believed that trickle down would occur from the developed world to the understand world at national, regional, and global levels. James O. Connell defined modernization as a process through which a traditional or pre-technological society pass as it transforms into society characterized by mission technology, rational and secular attitude, and highly differentiated social structure. It means the adopt of Western political and economic institution. Modernization theory proposed the social development economic institution. Modernization theory proposes social development can take place in a third world through the application of capitalist economic mechanisms. It evolved from the two ideas about social changes. 1. Concept of traditional versus modern society. B. Positive that viewed development as social evolution in progressive stages of growth. Modernization theory brought kind of how to develop for less developed countries. They were problem solving and policy oriented theory of social changes and economic development. The unit of analysis ranges from individual through local community to national and international state. The expansions of political, military, and economic interest of America emerged of newly independent coast and Cold War. These were the factors that leads to the study of social of Asia, Africa, Latin America and their economic development and socio-cultural changes in 1950s and 1960s. Before criticize A.J. Frank 1967 spell out the three approaches under the modernization theory. Number 1. Idea typical index method. Number 2. Diffusion or acceleration approach. Number 3. Psychological approach. A. Idea typical index method. In idea typical index method or gap approach, general future of the development economy and abstract as an idea type, then contrast with the idea typical future of the poor society development. Here is a view of the transformation of one type to the other. By identifying gap between the two, a development program is worked out. The two various things approach are Telcott Pearson pattern variable approach as example of Horsley 1960s Roslow historical stage approach. Talcott Parson pattern variable approach. According to Parson, any social actions and social system can be analyzed in the term of only five pair of pattern variables, which support the characteristics all possible social actions. Parsons pattern variable and alternative patterns of value oriented in the role of expectation of the actor in any social system. The five contrastation variations are affected neutrality effectivity, universalism, particularism, achievement ascriptions, specially diffusiveness, and self orientation, collective orientation. Rosen his Guda Frank criticizes Parson's theory of modernization that is empirical, invalid, theoretical, inequality, inadequate, and policy-wise ineffective. Underdevelopment and development are not associated with the characteristics of role in society but with the structure of the society. Roslow historical stage approach. Karl Marx envisaged the economic passes through the stages of salvary, feudalism, and the capitalism. These stages, in fact, represent transition of economy from the agrarian to the industrial follow the technological development. Later, W. Roslow's thesis also advocate the economy must pass through the historical evolution sequence from one stage to another. What Roslow theory stages of growth is a second variety of the index approach in the stages of economic growth. A non-communities manifestor Roslow 1960 identifies certain intermediate stage of growth within a gap between the underdeveloped and developed world. All the economy are considered as going to the five stages of economic growth. In the development of from very poor agriculture society to highly industrial mass consumption economics, the stages are the follows. Number one, traditional social are those where the product functions are limited and output per head is low and does not tend the race become the inaccessibility of science and technology. Her family and the class group are the emphasized versus values and fatalic and potential power of the non-controlled. The second stage in development of set of the per condition of the economic takeoff. This is a period of transition in which traditional institutions became to change. The economic gradually get grade to the using of modern science and technology. Number three, takeoff of stage, where the old resistance of steady growth and overcome and growth become the normal condition of the economy. Number four, drive to maturity, which is a stage of the increase in sophistication sophistication of the economy. While new industries are developed, there is a less realization of import and more export activities start. Profit maximization become need to surveys. Number five, stage of high mass consumption, where there is a affluent populations and durable and sophisticated consumer goods and service. All the basic needs are satisfied in this stage of society and more resources are utilized for social welfare and security. There is an emerge of welfare state. Aid should be given economic as the pre-takeoff stages to get them to the take-off stage. The necessary precondition for the development refers to socially increase efficiency to promote saving and generate the capital development managerial and entrepreneurial acumen of its people and make institutional and structural reform to the cope with the new challenges of economical growth. The main view in the gap approach is that does not take in the accounting and the international structure of development and underdeveloped of which the domestic structure of the underdeveloped is only the part. Number B, fusionalist or acceleration approach. According to the approach, development occurs by the diffusion of cultural elements from the development to underdeveloped countries. These cultural elements may be identified as including capital, technology, and institutions. The less development societies cannot be developed because they are not able to be influenced by the changing in the developed world due to the obstacles to development. Psychological approach. This results on assume these values, motive or psychological force that determine ultimately the rate of economic and social development. One of the most influenced book in this genre, The Achieving Society by David M.C. Seller in 1961, which argue a social with a high level of achievement will the product energy entrepreneur who in turn will produce more rapid economic development and psychological characteristic, which is he called an achievement or needs of achievement that particular individual for interpersonal role, which could be enhanced through the achievement motivation training. Lack in diffusion approach. This approach too doesn't consider that any changes are needed in the given social structures to create condition of economic development. It appeals to individuals to transform themselves psychologically in order to his broad social progress. Modernization theory overall understanding the critical important to traditional societies is highly Eurocritics in depolitics development by ignoring diverse history and cultural. Current theme of modernization theory focused on revaluation of tradition, not a obstacles but a resource. The trend is also on to the view modernization in plural and engaged with the postmodernism. Marxist and neo-Marxist approach of development and underdevelopment. There is an alternative set of approach to study the social aspect of economic growth in the modern world. While by the Marxists who employ the methods of historical Marxism, the approach uses the concept of development and underdevelopment in the way the question are basic found the modernization theories. Historically, the process of economic growth in the developed world is necessary compared by the process of underdevelopment in the certain of other parts of the world. From the point of view, modernization theory provides an ideology of imperial domains. Lenin writes the link of the process of capital development in the West out to the process of the worldwide imperialism, expand and establish of unequal economic relation between capital country and colonies, but not all dependency theory of Marxist. Marxist theory of imperialism and interdependent by Latin explain dominant state expansion and the way imperialism occurs on other hand. Independent theory explains the underdevelopment and consequence of empirism. The theory of underdevelopment are especially dependency theory. These theories are propounded by scholars like Paul Barron, Andre Gunnar Frank, Simran Amin, Emmanuel Fatrin H. Madoff. Dependency theory. Dependency theory came as a reaction to modernization theory viewed the poverty of country, the southern product of their indigenous of the world system. The origin is a trace back in the National of Dependica among the Latin American economists 1930s. UN Economic Commission for Latin American ECLA during the post-war period and work for Argentinian economic role Purbish. Historically, it began with the establishment of international aviation of labor for which third world countries acted as a productive of low-cost raw materials and the Western European as manufactured by high-priced finished goods. This lead to relationship of unequal changes, which in turn lead to the further deteriorations and balance of trade. The exchange was unequal as power and surplus value of labor flow up, the control ideology and expensive product flow down the chain. Dependency is a historical condition which shaped world economy rooted in internationalization of capital. De Santo 1970. It is the expense of economic development of state in terms of external influence, political, economic and cultural. On national development policy, Sugel 1969, it was three features. Dependency characters and international systems as compared to the two state of state dominant dependence, enter periphery, metropolitan state. It assumed the external force, foreign assistance, communication, multinational corporate, etc. are for importance of economic activity within the dependent state. Rationalism between two states of dynamic because the interactions between two reinforces and intensify the unequal pattern. Underdevelopment is different from underdeveloped. The latter is condition where resources are not being used, but underdeveloped is a state where resources are actively used such ways which benefit the core. Poor countries are not poor because lack of scientific transformation of enlargement is, but because they are coercively integrated in the European economic system by produced neuro materials. This approach view underdevelopment of the less developed countries as in unsequence of fact. The development rich countries excess of dominance and important access over the form. Paul Brand pioneered the theory of underdevelopment. The despite is death, long living dependency and class struggle 1974. Andre Gunnar Frank underlined the growth of class struggle between rich and poor nations which would aggressive due to the aggressive policies the formed. Samrin Amin contribute the classes of nations, historical and current crisis 1979, dealing in towards the polycentric world 1990. Take the role of rich countries in backward of the colonial countries. Paul Barron 1957 in the political economy of growth was the first among the advocates of dependency theory. He viewed the capitalism in its inherent characteristics exploit the third world. The capitalist world keep the backward world as the independent hinterland and extra the economic surplus. Barron argued the historical content between the underdeveloped and developed countries not only accelerate the decomposition of pure capitalist structure in underdeveloped countries but is also extract an important part of the underdeveloped countries surplus. Prevented the possibilities of industrialization countries, class formation and destroyed the development process to suit the needs of developed countries. Moran clarified the most significant factors preventing the emergency of the classical condition of growth in underdeveloped world is not the smallest economic surplus due to low volume of production and income. It is rather the mode of utilization of economic surplus. The surplus is appropriated by the merchant, money ladder, and intermediate. All kind of there is exist of capital from sphere of circulation to sphere of production. Beside other obstacles bring the entry of mercantile accumulation into the sphere of industrial production. Barr believes the existence class structure the third world countries has also be responsible for the dependent situation. The underdeveloped country given a independent development would have initiated the utilization of their natural resources on their own other term more the advantageous and those received from the foreign investors like Baran. Other dependency theory also argue the science western development had taken place at the expense of understanding countries. The only solution for the latter was breakout of the imperialist system into socialization. Baron obeys from the social model economic development, make his utopian marks. Andre Gunnar Frank was influenced by Paul Baron and his critics of the modernization theory. He rejected the theory of diffusion in also criticism M.C. Callan and Hagen. He gave the metropolitan state model that described the future of single integrated worldwide capital system. This model characterized the domination by industrial metaphorical USA of the underdeveloped state Mexico through an experience of their surplus by the imposition of export orientation capitalism development. It applied not only the reason between developed and underdeveloped world but also the rationale between within the understanding the economic and also within the developed economy themselves. Example can Milan and the Turin, it is Italy as a metropolis for southern Italy, and Sao Paulo, Brazil as a metropolis of the surrounding satellite. In the case of development countries, example could be the relationship between Scotland and Britain or between the southern and northern USA. This according to the model, each connection between satellite and the metropolises is the changes through which the certain appropriate a part of the economic surplus of the satellite. Frank was made a periodic presentation of the history of the world system. Both the process of development and underdeveloped started in a mercantile period in 15,000 and 1770 carried through the industrial capitalism. 1717 and 1817 and the ended with the empirical 1870 and 1930s through the process of the economy semi-colonial and neo-colonial exists primarily for the benefit of the capitalist metropolises and as a direct result become underdeveloped. Frank argued the gap between the development and underdevelopment is often greater national than internationally, and on the other moral underdeveloped and countries is a whole. The greater is the internal development underdevelopment. He uses the term internal colonialism to describe the modernization by the developed sectors in underdeveloped to developed country. Over the underdeveloped part, he rejected the tradition. Marxists argue the reason for the lack of development in aggregation underdeveloped country is the perspective of the feudalism. Frank argued that instead of the only way which is underdeveloped country can develop is breaking the way of the capital system. Thus, the developmency theory believes that the third world is not an era rape of for the development along pathway taken by European countries, as a modernization theory suggests, but instead is subsidiary part of the Western capital system. They have been criticized for given destroy the structure of periphery economy and socially. Wallenstein world system theory. The important theories associated with the world system theory are Immanuel Wallenstein and Simran Amin. This theory gives a historical account of the underdeveloped society. It emphasizes the international structure of the inequality, ignore the importance of internal social economic structure, and focus on unequal changes between rich and poor countries. Dependency theory uh, tend to focus on power in translation classes and the class structure in the sustain the global economy, where the world system analysis tend to focus on the role of powerful state and the in the state system. Immanuel Wagner's theory is rooted in the world of dependency theories because, like them, it seeks to explain the development of underdevelopment as a consequence of the growth of capitalist world economy. It is a dialectical process. Development of first world and consequently understood development of third world. World system theory abandons national economics and national state as a unit of analysis that believe that capitalism and its related international division of labor, exploitation and inequalities are organized not on the national scale but on the world scale. This result is inequality and backwardness for the periphery and the progress wealth for core. World system is self-conditioned social system that has boundaries, structures, member group rules and legislation and coherence. The modern world system followed by the decline of feudal system and explain how the dominations of Western European emerged within 1450s and 1670. It is essentially capitalist in nature. There are two type of world system. One, world empire, which exists with a single political system. For example, the Roman Empire of British Empire. Number two, world economy with a single large axial division of labor with multiple political center and multiple culture. Capitalist world system can accommodate many different political form of democracy, monarchy and a different form of production, survey and feudalism. Worsley in point three-level system. Consider the core of the periphery and the semi-periphery to analyze the capital system. This refers to the national state and hierarchical order related between them. The development core, England, France, refers the era of appropriate sulfur for the underdeveloped periphery, Brazil and Mexico. The existence developing semi-peripheral area, Portugal, Spain. The dipolar, the system of contribute to the continuous existence of the system. The power of the check to the political assist of the major peripheries against the minor core areas. These semi-peripheral states ensure the upper standard is not to face with the unified option of all other because middle tandem is both exploitation and exploration. Based the three categories Western talk external areas which remain their own economic system. The inner trading is given importance by the country of this region. Russia is the best example. The main criticism agent, the world system thesis is the highest Eurocritic. Samir Aman divide the world system into two sectors, self-centered system and peripheral system, and talk to the unequal development 1976. The country which are self-centered have their own internal dynamic system is unaffected by the external relationship, whereas the countries on the peripheral meet the record of the center. Amin's of view of the third world countries record for the center views third world countries and under direct influence of the capital world. Despite their own exclusive mode of production, their countries, under the influence of Western capitalism, have almost a similar capital nature of economy. For him, history of perhaps capital is full of short-term miracle. The long-term blocks, stagnation, and even regret in accumulation on a world scale 1974. Amit talk about the districulation, distortion of economy and polarization of class uh, interest on a global scale leading to world uh, po- portrayal against the world bureaucracies. F.S. Cardo critics Goa Frank the Walsner in their theories are inequalities that determining they ignore the indigenous social forces and structural dynamic of industrialization in peripheries and also the impact of class struggle within the periphery. There's a view ignore the question of the historical and structural particularization in different countries and provide an over integrated view of the world capital system. Uh, Hamza Alvi, while writing about the structure of the peripheral capitalism differentiate between colonial and non-colonial countries lie in their models of the production. He argued their per capita structures and profoundly transformed by the colonial capital and development of indigenous capital. Dependencies weak religious social structures so that local power was held by small ruling classes used the gain from the exporting of luxury consumption rather than investment. Real power was extended from the external center of the command in dominant countries. Dependence continuously into the present of through the international worldship of the regional most dynamic sector. Multinational corporate control over the technology and the payment of royalties, interest, and profit development could achieve only by the withdrawal from the world capitalist system and reconstructed by economy and society and social basis. Arhigiri Emmanuel 1972 theory unequal changes argue that labor is not a mobile across the country as a capital. It is the neural consequence that is that wages labor the western are not and low as in less developed countries. Due to low rate of wages, the production in the less developed countries are cheaper than those produced by the developed countries. Thus, the third world is encourage the production more of the export. The current trend of independency theory is analyzing the critics NICS, newly independent countries. The approach, like new political economy and national political economy, give a renewal of dependency thinking, neoliberalism, and uneven global development, and current themes in this kind of analysis. Neoliberal perspective development. With unlike the liberationism development in 19th century was in the West as an ideology. It has a shaped history of the world. Liberalism is stood out in opposite of socialism and the political absorption and has been committed to the principle of self-regulation market. The ideas of classical liberalism based the idea of laissez-faire appear in 1980s in the form of liberalization and globalization economic process. According to neoliberal perspective, economic growth can be achieved through the structural reform, degraduation, liberation, privatization. All these roll back the role of government role and increase the invention of the market force. Development is a market-led growth and away from the static approach to the development. In order the other way, the core meaning of development is retained the economic growth while the how the agency's development switch from the state to market. According neoliberalism is an anti-developed perspective, not theme of globes, but in the term of mean. Alternative development, seen a grassroots or popular development and participatory development. Alternate development is a critical of mainstream development and provide series of alternative prospects, practical and methodologies. The alternative refers to the alternative relations to state and market. Here is a development should be social lead. This alternate development paradigm is concerned with local development. Dependency theory and mainstream modernization emphasize structural macroeconomic changes, whereas alternative development emphasizes agency in the same of people capacity of even the change. Here is the emphasis is one self relates, it is privilege local grassroots autonomy. Latucho in 1993 examined the three principal angles of alternative development: food, self-sufficient basic need, and appropriate technologies. The elements of alternate development such as participation have increasingly be corporate in maintain approach. It is strength is regarding of local development and social agency from the grassroots group in social movement or to NGOs. Alternative generally Alternate generally refers to three phases: agent, method, and object or value of development. According in NERF in 1977, alternative development is the traffic of third system or citizen politics, the importance of which is the appropriate in view of failing development effort of government, the prince and the first system, economic power, merchant or second system. Thus, alternative development is development from below. Here is a below is refers both in community and non-governmental organization. In other words, general of alternative development are community and NGO. The development methodology is participatory, endogenous, and self-reliant. The main object is be granted to basic needs. Alternative development perspective is strong on critique of maintenance of development and weak on alternative based declaration and local empowerment. The big haters in development now no longer run between mainstream alternatives development but within the mainstream development. Mainstream development now incorporate many alternative development elements and practice. Gandhian perspective of development can be seen in examples of alternative development. It is emphasis on the indigenous technology in the process of development and self-development over the material prosperity. Real progressivism is rooted in a Swadeshi. Gandhi gives importance to the development of village and rural industries and argues the favor of self-development and self-realization through the uh, decentralization of control. Human development perspectives. Since long development has been defined the growth measured by meaning of per capita GNP. Gradually developed has been the refined the enlargement of people chosen human capitalism since 1965 and improvement in human development index, life expectancy and education. Human development broadly refers to the improvement in overall human well-being according to human development perspectives. Development is a enlargement of people chosen in the United Nations Development Program UNDP, which released the concept in Human Development Report HDR in 1990. Mahbub ul Haq 1995 proposed a human development paradigm of equal sustainability, productivity, and empowerment. It is an element of productivity and set this paradigm apart from the alternative development paradigm. The human development approach now extends to the gender. As a gender development index, political rights as in a freedom development index, and environmental concern, sustainable human development. Alternative and human development together represent a combination of local, grassroots, and state perspectives. Feminist theory of development, raising additional issues of gender relation such as exclusion of women from the suffering and decision making, decrease access to the resource, health, nutrition, education. Feminists called for empowerment of women and agent of development. Various forms of feminism development theories refer various concerns like WID, women in development, WAD, women in development, GAD, gender and development, WED, women, environment and development, and PAD, postmodernism and development, anti-development perspectives. Anti-development perspectives. Anti-development and post-development perspectives came in radical reactions to the dilemmas of development. These approaches reject the ideas of North has right of the administration development and democracy to the South. For them, development is a destructive and authoritarian. Development is registered as a cultural empirism, westernization, and homogeneous and bring the environmental destruction. This rejection to not mercy on account to its result, but because of its intention, its world view and mindset. It has been the concerned with the local autonomy, advocate the local delinking. It has the index with the ecological liberation movement and resist globalization. Anti-development and anti-globalization become synonymy. What is modernization theory? Modernization theory and emerged by post WW second period are problem solving and policy oriented theory, social changes, economic development, and what kind of how to develop manner for less developed countries. What is dependency theory? Dependency theory, where is the development and underdeveloped and critique modernization theory and focus on structure of unequal relationship and domination between rich and poor countries. Alternative development. Explain the alternative development perspectives. Alternative development is a criticism of maintaining development and the providing series of alternative proposal, practice and methodologies. The alternative is refers to as alternative in relation to state and market. Here is depend on seeing the B social needs. Let us sum up. In this unit, we will discuss the various perspectives of development, while modernization theory, Marxist and neo-Marxist approach of development, and underdevelopment, neoliberal perspectives, alternative development, human development, anti-development. Different perspectives of development are well submarine table from the Pursuits of 2001 is given below. Theories of definition of development, current theme, future other. Modernization. Development is a settled growth, keynotes, industrialization, westernmost foreign aid, and linear progress in convergence. Current theme, revolution is a traditional neo-domination, triumphalism, end of the history. Future option, modernism, plural, postmodernism. Theory and definition of development. Dependencia. Development is underdevelopment or development by comparing bureaucracies or state-led autocracy development, associate dependent development, national biography. Critics of NIC, New International Division of Labor, social execution, no political economy brings the state back of international political economy power and economic uneven global development. Criticism uneven globalization. Neoclassical economic neoliberalism in theories and definition of development. Development is a market-led growth, key not overcome state failure through structural reform, degradation, revelation. Current theme, marketing, liberation, and get price right. Current theme വന്നിട്ട് marketing failure, safety, net, human capital, infrastructure, good governance, sustainability, debt reduction, new institutional economics, instant analysis. Future option, regulation of finance, civics economy. Alternative development. Development should be social leads, equitable, participatory and sustainable. Adopted mainstream declaration, professionalism, alternative globalization, social economy, social development and global reform. Human development, capitalization of human resource of development, it is mean and end of the development measured in human development index. Gender, DI freedom, DI human security, global reform. Social and cultural capital, social development, global reform. Development is destructively immersing authorization, past keynotes, discourses, analysis, critics of science and modern. Local dealings connected with the ecological movement, resist to the globalization, localism.